So this happened at the very end of last week. I was on a call with Kay from Sassy Bee. Kay is one of what I call our wealthy retailers. She is in Virginia, and talked about, there's a bit of panic out here right now, Dan. She's in home goods and accessories, home accessories, a little bit of personal accessories. But really, we think of her as a home goods and accessory category store. Perhaps kitchen for some other stores that aren't sure where that lands. And she talked about that there is a bit of a panic right now, that even the reps and the wholesalers are saying we're running out of product. You got to place orders sooner than later. There's going to be a deficiency. And this is the exact same thing, Rob, that we're seeing across every single vertical that we work in. Cannabis is the only vertical that seems to have a pretty decent supply. Cannabis and liquor is holding its own, but everything else is challenged. 1 in 3 bike stores this year are going to file. We're in trouble in the bike industry, and perhaps we're not even really recognizing it. In home goods, the same thing. There is a massive shortage. There's a supply chain disruption, and we're seeing it in apparel. We're seeing it in home goods. We're seeing it in furniture. Furniture's got 16 to 20 week lead time to buy a bloody sofa. So we're seeing lots of disruption. And so then, our conversation with Kay quickly moved to, should I go to Dallas market? It's not one that I normally attend, but it's ahead of Atlanta. Should I get there and get there early? And I said, yeah. If there's an opportunity for you to go to market, you got to go to market. You can't even hesitate. You can't even think twice about it. You have to get to market. And more importantly, because of there being a supply challenge, you've got to be looking for other opportunities in your store. And there's 2 things that have really happened. We've seen, as we just talked about, a ton of stores close and a bunch that are reopening. And do you want that reopened store to have a line that perhaps you might have wanted? So let's get in front of them. Let's get to market. And going to market allows us the opportunity to expand our horizon, to look out at more. And we should be attending every possible market that we can go to in search of the next A-list vendor, A-list item, A-list product in your store. And, for Kay, going to Atlanta is a hell of a lot easier than probably going over to Dallas, Texas. But she's probably going to get ahead of someone else by going to Dallas. And she's going to see things early that she can now start to realign her assortment, her presentation, our budget when we go to buy. And so this conversation happens with Kay. I think it was last Friday morning. And between Friday and yesterday, I had 3 more conversations with customers or clients, retailers, pardon me.
Same topic.
On the same topic. Dan, I'm starting to get, barraged with Magic invitations, and should I be going to Magic? And now No Show has announced they're coming back, and, what should I be doing? And I'm like, come hell or high water, you got to go to market. If you got to drive yourself or walk your ass across the border to fly on a plane, to get on a plane somewhere, do it. You've got to be protecting your business by buying product. If you're not buying, you ain't selling.
And as I said, right now, a lot of time is money right now.
Yeah, and for the Canadian retailers, fashion retailers, that aren't going to New York like they maybe normally would, or not going to LA like they maybe normally would, it's gotta be a high priority to get to these markets, a high priority. And I'm not saying, oh my God, sacrifice your life and go to market. Do what you got to do to protect yourself, but get your ass to market. We got to go to market. And so then, that's maybe for me, Rob, a bit of a segue. If you are going to go to market, here's 3 things that I really think you need to pay attention to at market. You got to walk the floor. If you're that person that just books yourself with appointments and you never get to see anyone new, you're missing 90% of what market's all about. You got to get to market and you got to walk the floor. You got to take some notes. You got to write things down that you want to go back and revisit. You spend that first day or half a day just cruising the floor looking for things that inspire or excite you. If you only go back to your booked appointments, you miss the good stuff. You know, and no matter what show you're going to, there's opportunity for you to go and see new vendors. So number one, you walk the floor before ever attending an appointment. Number two, you've got to spend, you've got to commit to spend at least 20 to 30% of your open to buy on test vendors and test merchandise. Test vendors that I haven't worked with in the last year, products I perhaps haven't carried in my store. And, you know, we're going to market with this preformed knowledge, this preformed education about what our customer spending habits have been in my store at the class or category level, not the vendor level.
I was going to ask, is it test category, Dan, or
category?
Okay.
Test new products within your categories.
Okay.
Right? You got to know what categories are on in your store and which ones are off. And more importantly than fixing the ones that are off, replicate the ones that are on. Figure out why it's working. Is it price point, style, color, fit? You know, is it a utensil? What is it? Is it a tool? Why is it working? Not why is it not working? You know, we often spend so much time, Rob, beating ourselves up for what we don't know. We hold ourselves to this, you know, unachievable standard on what we don't know. Man, don't worry about what you don't know. Focus on what you do know and replicate the success that you have, not the failures that you're having. How do you ignore failure? Identify the steps to success in every category. Price point, margin. I mean, everything is important here in identifying why is something working. So you've got to commit 20 to 30% of your open to buy on test merchandise, test vendors, test categories, and see where the lines can be bowed in your store right now.
Awesome.
Number 3 for me is you got to own your power. And what do I mean when I say own your power? Independent retailers are the most powerful entities at market. You know, you're not shopping alongside Macy's. You're shopping alongside other indie retailers, right? You got to own your power. You've got to be aggressive. We buy aggressively. We play offense, not defense at market. It's way better to overbuy and cut or trim orders than it is to underbuy. The greatest, fastest death sentence in retail is underbuying, not overbuying. And, you know, this may be a contentious issue with some, but I would much rather hold hands with a retailer that's overbought than one that's underbought. Underbought, no sales. I mean, no inventory, no sales. Overbought, lots of inventory. Maybe I got to mark it down to get some cash, but at least I've got something to sell. So you got to be aggressive. What else does it mean to own your power? You've got to be data driven. You know, you've got to come to market with a bit of science behind your art, right? And be data driven. I love this, but the data tells me maybe I'm the only one that's going to love it. You know, lean hard on data. And the last thing you've got to be to own your power is you've got to be forgiving. You got to erase the past, broken relationships, strained relationships that have happened in the last, 18 months or in your previous life with a vendor. Just be forgiving. Start anew. Own your power. Go in there like, hey, we're starting fresh from today.
Yep.
The most powerful thing we can do is forgive.
Sell me. Win me over again. What do you got?
Let's figure this out together.
Yeah.
So Kay did not send this message through the Wealthy Retailer, nor did I ask for her permission to share it. But I'm going to ask for forgiveness.
I was just going to say, go with the forgiveness line, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah. So retailers, any question you have, just fire an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. And let's just work through this together. This happened to be a question that Kay had that repeated itself 3 or 4 times in a matter of a few days. So your question may not be your question. It may be a lot of people's questions. So do yourself and your community a favor and ask it. Don't ever be afraid to put your hand up and say, hey, got a question. Dan@thewealthyretailer.com, and I promise you get an answer right away.